All right, this one is for, who was it that asked me now? Shauna Madsen, if you're out there, this one's for you, my friend. There was a question the other day. Can you do a quick little how-to on binding? And I said, I love to bind. I absolutely love to bind. And someone said, are you kidding me? If you love to bind so much, I will send you 5 of my quilts. I was like, I'd love it. I seriously love to bind. Now, I will share with you a little secret here. Years ago, I can't say that I love to bind. In fact, I hated it so much that I actually paid someone to do it for me, which is ridiculous. You don't need to pay someone to do it for you. It's not that hard. It was so fun. Marcia says that scream was unexpected. She almost dropped her laptop. I know. That's why it was so dang funny. It's like you didn't expect it. Sorry, back to the binding. So, the reason why some don't enjoy binding is because it's so um, it can be frustrating, especially when um, the ends don't come together. Any of you have that problem out there? So I'm going to show you a few tips I have today that will make this whole process so much easier and so much more enjoyable. Are you ready? All right. So I've got a couple of samples here that have prepared to take you step by step. So the first thing I want to tell you is that when you start binding a quilt, and this is probably very timely because I know a lot of you are finishing quilts right now. So I hope you find this little tutorial helpful. You have your fabric folded in half, wrong sides together, right? So we're going to create this binding around it. You always start, and let me just back up. There are a million ways to get to the same result, right? So I'm going to show you the one way that I like, and maybe you'll like it and maybe you won't, and that's okay. So hopefully you'll be able to learn something new and try it out, or go, oh yeah, that's exactly how I do it. Or maybe it's not how you do it, but you might be able to still appreciate the process, right? So lots of ways to get to the same result, but this is the way I'm showing. I always like to start my binding in the middle of a project. Now I have a friend who always starts on the end. I like to start in the middle. And you always leave about an 8 to 10 inch tail flapping in the wind, hanging out there. Okay, this is really important for when it comes time to be able to join those ends together. All right, so let me put my camera over here, and I started sewing in the middle and I come down to here, and I'm going to stop at a 1/4 inch to the corner. Okay, let me see if I can get that a little bit closer. I'm going to stop sewing a 1/4 inch to the corner. And then another little tip that I like to do is I actually like to pivot my project, keeping the needle in the down position right there at the 1/4 inch. I pivot, and then I actually will sew right off at an angle, at that 45-degree angle to the corner. Now, the reason why I like that is because what it does is it provides a barrier for me to be able to fold my fabric back on top of itself and over. And it just makes the most beautiful, clean, mitered corner. All right. So again, I'm sewing starting in the middle, 1/4 inch seam allowance. I go all the way, but I stop at a 1/4 inch to the point. And if you need to, if you're afraid that you're not going to be able to see where that 1/4 inch is beforehand, go ahead and measure it beforehand and place a little pin in there to remind you that you want to stop right there. All right, but you're going to go down, sew a 1/4 inch, and then I pivot with the needle down, and I sew off to the corner at a 45-degree angle. All right, at that point, what you'll do is you bring it back on top of itself, and let's see if I can get this a little bit more clear here. Oops, this way. Okay, so I've sewed down to here. I bring it back on top of itself so that I've created a 45-degree angle here and a 90-degree angle there. Okay, if I'm out like this, I've gone too far. If I'm over here, I haven't gone far enough. So being able to notice that I have a straight perpendicular 90-degree angle there and a 45-degree angle here. The tip is going into the point of my quilt. I know I'm ready to rock and roll. Okay, so all I do is give it a little finger press, and then this is up here. So in order to get it to come down here, I just simply fold it back on top of itself, just like that. My fold is still riding along the top here. Okay, my fold is up there at the top. And then I will take it to my machine again, and I will sew directly from the top and continue going on. All right, so one more time. I'm sewing, I stop at a 1/4 inch, I pivot, and I sew off at an angle. I now can bring this up at a 45-degree angle there, 90-degree angle here. I'm going to bring my fabric back on top of itself with the fold at the top. At that point, I'll put it back to my sewing machine and sew a 1/4 inch all the way down. If you do that, you should have perfect mitered corners. All right, so yeah, definitely a tip that I absolutely love is to actually pivot and sew off. Now, I'm going to do that around all 4 corners, and then what am I going to do to join these ends? Let me share with you another step out that I have. All right, so I've done my corners. See how nice that is? When it comes time to turn it out, it's just gonna, oh, it's gonna just lay so nice and beautiful right there. Okay, so pivoting it off, I think, has been a game changer for me. All right, so now when I have these, I'm gonna make sure and stop when I get, when I get close to where I began. I'm gonna stop so that I have flapping in the wind on both sides. All right, now let me show you the easiest way of being able to connect those ends that I have ever tried. And trust me, I've tried 20 different ways of doing this, and to me this is the most straightforward, and you don't need a special tool for this. I know there's rulers out on the market for it. In fact, we sell some rulers out on the market for it because there are some who still like to have the ruler to show them. And if that's you, that's okay. That's perfectly fine. But I'm going to show you how to do it without a ruler. All right, so let's come back here. And I'm kind of doing this at a little bit of an angle, so I hope I can get this right. Okay, so you notice that I've got way more than I need to right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to trim, let's see, get this over here. I'm going to trim a little bit of this off, and I know that can be scary for some of you. You might go, but as long as you have enough going over, you're just fine. So I'm going to just take my scissors and save this, and you'll see why I save this here in just a minute. Okay, I'm going to just set that aside, and now I need to join these ends. So what I'm going to do is place this one over top of the one that's below, and the magic number here, this is the formula, if you will. This is the secret. However wide you cut your binding is the magic number to get to cut off of this excess. Okay, let me say that again. However wide your binding is the magic number of how much to cut the excess off. So for example, I think I did this at 2.5. Let me just double check. No, I did this binding at 2.25. So 2.25 inches, that's going to be my magic number. So I could do one of a couple different things. I didn't grab a small ruler. That would have been helpful, but that's okay. I could, what I need to do is where these two intersect, which is right here, I want to measure 2.25 inches over from where they intersect. So I could take my ruler and measure 2.25 inches over. So 1, 2.25, and I could draw a line right there and then cut it. Or what's even easier is this. We already know, remember this extra piece that I had, okay, that I cut off? I could use this as my template to do the 2.25 inches. Okay, I could use this as my template because we know this is 2.25 inches, right? So all I'm going to do is open this up and not use a ruler. I'm going to lay this over top, just like that, remembering that where they intersect is where I start measuring, and place this 2.25 inches over top like that. So when I lay it there, it's right where those have intersected, and I lay this piece on top. I can then pull it out to my cutting mat and trim that away. Okay, so one more time. Sorry if I'm being repetitive. I just want to make sure that we all understand what's going on here. Again, I'm just laying this over top. Where these two intersect is where I measure 2.25 inches. I'm going to use what I cut off before to be my template for where 2.25 inches is. So I'm simply going to place that over top. I'll put it this way so I can see it a little bit better. And this is where I cut it. So I'm just going to bring that over to my mat, which is just right there. And are you guys getting nervous? I'm about to cut this. Let's hope it works. No, I assure you it will. There we go. And now I have the perfect cut for what that needs to be in order to connect these two. Okay, before I move on to show you it joined, let me see if there's any questions. Okay, so Debbie says that's how she joins her binding. Good, good, good. Kathleen shares, I'm going to give this a try. I've never seen this before. Good, I'm so glad to hear that. And let's see, do you cut 2.5 inches, fold in half when attaching a quilt, so 1/4 inch? Cheryl, I do. It depends on what you like your binding to be. My personal preference for a binding is 2.25 inches. And the only reason why I say that is because I like a little bit more of a snug on the edges of my quilt. I like the binding to really wrap around the quilt nice and tight. But it's totally a personal preference. So if it's 2.5, you're good with 2.5. If it's 2.25, that's great too. If you like really wide bindings and you're going to do a 3-inch, you would do the same. So it doesn't matter. It's just whatever size that you like. And again, my personal preference is 2.25. Unless it was a thicker quilt, I would definitely do 2.5. But when it's when I'm using like an 80-20 binding, I stick with the 2.25. I just like that snug fit. So, all right. Oh, let's see. Marianne shares she's always afraid to make that last cut. Yeah, I get it. I understand. I totally understand that, my friend. But I promise you, it definitely works. Okay. So, Jerry Lynn, yep, that's a great question, and it's one I get asked a lot. Let me bring this over here so everyone can see. She asked, do you have a tip when you open the pieces how to make sure you're lining them up correctly? Sometimes I flip them backwards. Um, the best tip I have is to practice and keep practicing, and don't cut anything until you know it's correct. But let me show you kind of this mantra I say to myself, and it's kind of silly. It's the dumbest thing, and if any of you have taken my classes, you know exactly what I'm about to tell you. But this is just what I do, so I'll show you. Okay, so here we come down right here, and I'm going to flip this around. So now, so what Jerry Lynn was basically asking me was, do you have a way of making sure these don't get flipped? What I do is I tell myself I'm putting my hands in my pockets. So my fingers are going into the pocket of the binding. Okay, just like that. See that? And then my left side comes up just at this 90-degree angle. My left side comes up, and my right side needs to go kiss it. So just like that. So again, hands in pockets, left side goes up, my right side comes over to kiss it. And when you do that, I'm going to actually pull this out a little bit more. I should have given myself a little bit more wiggle room. That's another thing, that if it's getting too tight, feel free to just pull out some of those stitches. Obviously, I just yanked it. If you want to be more careful, use a seam ripper, obviously. But it's okay to loosen that up. Yes, even after you've sewn it, to make sure that you have lots of wiggle room to play with here. Okay, so hands in pockets, left side comes up, right side comes over to kiss it. So when I do that, I have formed, again, a right angle, or it's perpendicular. These pieces are perpendicular to each other. Let's see if I can show that a little bit better. Okay, and I'm going to place not just one pin. This is another tip that I have. I place about 4 pins. Yep, 4 pins in it, my friends, because I will place one going at a diagonal from corner to corner. Now remember, this is exactly how what we had to do to join our ends of binding. When we're trying to create a long binding strip, we're doing the same thing because we're mitering those strips together. So that's the direction you want to be in. So I'll put a pin at a diagonal. I'll put a pin going up and down. I'll put a pin going straight across, because I want to get this little area nice and tight. There is no movement going on there, my friends. It is nice and tight. So you can see I've got 4 different pins in it. Now, if you wanted to, you could also take the time to draw your line there so that you know exactly where to follow. Or if you have a machine that has a guide beam, you could use that. Or you could just try and eyeball it, which is what I'm going to do right now. Okay, I'm going to eyeball this from corner to corner. So you always, when you sew, you're going from outside edge to outside edge, outside corner to outside corner. And when you do that, it will make everything line up straight. If you go from inside corner to outside edge, then that's when it goes ski-wampus. You don't want that. So remember, outside corner to outside corner. And then, of course, don't cut anything until you have been assured that you did it correctly, right? All right, so now I'm ready to come over to my machine, and I am over here sewing today on the Janome 3160. So I'm going to pull this up. Oh, it would help if I had it plugged in. Let me go do that for a second. There we go. All right. So with that, there we have it. Okay, so again, you see that this is lined up perfectly perpendicular to one another, and I'm going to eyeball it from outside corner to outside corner, making sure my needle is in the center position. And I don't have my foot pedals, so I'm going to use the start stop button. And I'm also going to slow down my machine just a little bit because I don't want it to zoom and take off on me. Okay, make sure you take out those pins. Go a little bit faster. And now I feel pretty comfortable with just taking them all out. Okay, there you go. I'll use my scissor feature on here to be able to cut my threads. And there you have it. I have that done. Now, before I trim anything off, I want to make sure that's going the right direction, which it is. So I'll come over here and just trim off that excess there. If I had a decent pair of scissors. Let me use my rotary cutter. There we go. Much easier. Okay. And I would normally take it over to the ironing board and actually open up that seam. And now take a look what happens. It just goes right in there. So nice. It's perfect. It just fits right in. And then I'll give it a little press, and then I just stitch the rest of the way down, and my binding is in there. So easy, easy peasy. All right, what questions do you have? Marianne shared, I took your seam binding class at my girlfriend's quilt shop last year. It was wonderful. I highly recommend it to others. You have a great tutorial on the club website. Thank you, Marianne. I appreciate that. Let's see. Debbie shares, oh my gosh, I've always done straight seams because I could never get them mitered, but I think I just got it. Yeah, it's not too bad, my friend. You can do it. Yes, and Debbie, outside corner to outside corner. I still, years have gone by, and I still tell myself, it's that little thing in that little voice in my head, outside corner to outside corner, outside corner to outside corner. And now all of you are going to be thinking, Kris is telling me outside corner to outside corner, right? So definitely make sure you do that, and you should be just perfect. All right. Betty Jo says lemon squeezy. Good, 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 good. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. Shauna, you're so sweet. She said one of your superpowers is teaching. You're very kind. I hope that helps all of you, because it really is a lot of fun. And I like to actually hand stitch my binding on the back. But if I'm in a hurry, or if I'm doing a quilt that is going to be washed a lot, like say a camping quilt or a picnic quilt or a child's quilt that's going to have a lot of washing, I will always finish my binding by machine on both sides. So, all right. Jerry Lynn asked if I'm doing this series again next week. Yes. Yep. I've got some fun plans for next week as well. So definitely 3 Themes at 3 will happen next week too. All right. Yeah, Gloria shared, it's so much easier. The special binding ruler instructions are confusing. I totally agree with you. I don't find it very easy at all. But like I said, we have those rulers here because some people really are into the gadget and the ruler, and if that's the best way, if that's your way of being able to remember all these things, then I totally say go for it. There's nothing wrong with using a ruler. I just happen to know that, half the time I can't find my stuff. So it was kind of like, just figure out, Kris, how to do it without the ruler. And this has been really really easy. So I hope it helps someone out there. Yeah. Okay, so yeah, if you have anything, any ideas for me for next week of what you'd like to see me demonstrate, I would love to hear them, because that's again where I get my ideas of what to share with you is from you. So please send me an email. By the way, if you ever want to send me a personal email, you can always to that we'll make sure it goes right to me. My email is Kris, Kris, at mygirlfriendsquiltshop.com. And shop is always spelled with two P's and an E. So my girlfriend, Kris, at my girlfriend's quilt shop, and I'd be happy to read your emails and see, what things I can share and how I can help in any way possible. So, all right. Julie asked, do you have any tips for machine binding to make it look good on both sides when sewn on the machine? Yes, there's a foot out there, and I think every brand of machine has it, and it might be it might be called a little differently for what brand you use. Let me see if I've got one over here, and that is the edge joining foot. It happens to be one of my most favorite feet in the whole world, and I'm looking to see if we have it. Nope, looks like we're out. We sell them all the time, but it looks like a blind hem foot. A lot of people will get it confused with a blind hem foot, but it actually is better than a blind hem foot because there's an opening for you to be able to see. And when you move your needle over a few stitches over, you get this beautiful, right down the line machine binding, and it's something I definitely recommend. And I know Barb, who works here at the store, she you probably see her doing a lot of machine tutorials online. She has a video on our YouTube channel. Just put in edge joining foot, and she shows you how to use it, and it's a wonderful foot to use on your machine. So I love that one. Yeah, Sherilyn says Barb has a good tutorial with a foot. Yep, she sure does. So definitely check that out. It's the edge joining foot. So, all right. Okay, so I think that is my how-to for today. So that's number 2 thing. So